These are my top tips for running an ISO 27001 project implementation in your organization. These are the key things that I wish I had known if I traveled back in time to the first point at which I had started it. They might not resonate for everyone, but they're honest and heartfelt from me. So take them on board or don't, but here we go. So the first thing is you really need leadership, sponsorship and support here. Now that is part of 27001, but I'm putting that to one side. It's for the same reason, but it's not just because the clause says it. It's because if you go into an organization and you hand it over to a very junior member of staff and say, okay, we want 27001 in a couple of months, they're not going to have that top-down sponsorship because you need people behind you. Even if you are the person implementing it, you need people behind you to say to others, this is a direction of travel. This is the way it's going to be. These policies, they're important. This 27001 certificate and security is important to our business for good reason. So don't try and implement it bottom up. It's okay if it is implemented by a team that's kind of subordinate to a leadership team or an information security team, but make sure you've got that leadership sponsorship from the very start. My next tip then is do it as a team. Don't do it as an individual. So if you've got an idea that you can do this side of desk and you're going to implement this change to a lot of other stakeholders in your business, even if it's a small business, well, think again. I would at least have a couple of people around you. I don't believe in huge teams and bringing everybody to a long table and working as a huge team. I much prefer smaller teams, just 2, 3, 4 people. And people as you need to bring them in and out, HR, for example, they might not need to be part of your ISO 27001 implementation team, but excluding them is going to be foolhardy. So make sure that you bring these people to the table. They don't have to have a permanent chair at the table, but they should feel involved because you are implementing change with people and not to people. Again, you put policy in place that people haven't seen, then you're going to have problems. My next tip is don't implement a load of unnecessary tools. I see people going crazy and thinking, oh, we should put security onion in place. We should have this logging tool. We need data loss protection tools and, identity tools. You don't need any of that for ISO 27001. You don't need to implement any particular tool and you don't have to use something like Vanta, for example, to manage your ISO implementation. You can do it with spreadsheets and emails and logic and writing things into documents in 365 or Google or what have you. Again, you need to tailor 27001 to your business. So if your business is quite small and doesn't have a lot of money to spend, you look at the risk and go, well, how can we spend that money to best effect? It might be on training and not on tools, but you make the decision about what's right for your business. My next tip then is understanding your scope. And everybody always ignores me. I get quite frustrated with this, but I tell people, shrink your scope, especially in your first time. You don't want to overcomplicate it. So if you're doing it for a customer to win in customers and bids and things like that, then just consider that your scope is based around that service that you're offering to your customer, that product or supporting services. And anything that then touches that, sure, it's in scope. But maybe you don't want to include employee data. Maybe you don't want to include your financial data and stuff like that. Maybe you do. Maybe you're a small business and you just think we're just going to cover it all. Fine. But do seriously think about what your scope is and should be. My next one then is a bit of a secret in terms of the way that I approach things. Minimal viable compliance. This is a term that people might recognize from software development, minimal viable product. But minimal viable compliance is doing the least amount you can to get through your first audit. You don't have to create something that's overly complicated and daunting to build. You just want to scrape through on your first compliance. Be compliant with the standard for sure. I'm not suggesting that you're rolling the dice here. I'm just saying don't overcomplicate it for yourself. Because if you say you're going to do something in your setup, then you're going to have to do it and then evidence it to an auditor. So you want to do the least amount that you can for your first certification. And then from there, you build it on and on and on. And in a few years, it'll be so much more mature than your current setup. You won't recognize where you actually started as to where you are now. So keep it simple and target that minimal viable compliance. My last one is don't get hoodwinked by auditors and consultants. They can all vary hugely in price and effort. They will upsell their services so that consultants are in there doing it all for you, and it'll be tens of thousands of pounds, and it needn't be. Now, I'm going to talk for myself, just a little self-promotion here, that, when I work with businesses, I am trying to get them to do it for themselves, and I'm coaching them like a Sherpa would coach you and show you how to climb a mountain. They know where the base camps are, they know the slippery rocks not to step on, and they will help you get there a lot easier than you're going to do it on your own, for sure, but they're not actually going to carry you up that mountain or do the experience for you and then tell you about it afterwards. So auditors and consultants can wildly vary in price, so do look around, look at your options, and they are trying to embed themselves into your business because they want recurring revenue. So they can often come forward with a loss leader, like something that's heavily discounted, because they know that in the subsequent years, they're going to make up that money quite quickly. So you want to stand on your own 2 feet, understand how your SMS is built for yourself, and try not to let people wiggle into your business so that you can't get rid of them. So those are my pieces of advice. Take them or don't, but I do hope that they help you at least consider some of the factors of implementing ISO 27001 in the best way.